People are saying that JK was recently seen in a car with a woman, and people have a lot of questions. People are talking about a clip in which we see JK biting an ear, allegedly, and then people talking about JK addressing a female body part. Say Dumplings, this is Dave Disci. Let's get into it. People have been very bored within the BTS community. I think a lot of people are just starting to do very random, strange things. And when I say strange things, I mean fun things. People have been creating memes and making really funny jokes that I think a long time ago they definitely would not have been able to make. And if they did make it, it would not gain traction because people would be upset, I feel. This joke was using JK standing and adding him to a picture of a tampon at the tampon aisle of a supermarket and turning towards the camera, who is supposed to represent a girl or someone who has their period, and basically says, "What size is your vajayjay?" This is obviously funny because I don't think tampons come in sizes, do they? I think it's just more so dependent on the flow, but then there aren't like sizes, I don't think. However, I don't really know that very well, but this is of course just a joke about this whole situation, right? Like people are saying that if JK was in a relationship with them, this is probably how he would act doing very mundane everyday things or just things like that. Now, of course, as I'm sure a lot of people are aware, if you were to actually be in a relationship with JK, you would not be able to go to the supermarket with him because he's just beyond that famous. I believe he would get mobbed, and I believe at this point in his career, he might even just opt to have things delivered to his apartment rather than leave. And I'm sure most of the time he tries to not leave his apartment. And I know this is obviously a joke and people are making this into a little bit of a fun thing, but sometimes I'm not sure if these things are fully jokes because people are acting like this is totally possible. And I get it, sort of, because they're trying to humanize him and say that if he were to do these things, this is how he would do it. And they are trying to make him seem like a person, which of course then makes him more lovable. But at a certain point, we have to realize that they're not doing the same things that we're doing for the most part. And we should humanize them based on their character rather than what they might do on the day-to-day. And it perpetuates this misunderstanding within the industry where people believe that they know what's happening in the industry when they really don't. Because most of the things that happen in the industry are beyond our knowledge. If you're not in the industry, you will have no idea why things happen the way they happen. So by assuming that they are doing things exactly like us leaves room for misinterpretation when they act how they normally act due to the fact that they're in the industry. I hope that makes sense. Now, one of the other comments that I was seeing about this was, I guess they were saying that people were bored of this post or didn't like this post, and they were saying that they remembered how it was many years ago when you could joke within the ARMY community and it was totally fine. However, I don't remember that at all. I remember if you made even the slightest jokes, especially back then, you were crucified. I remember no matter what claim I made, I was getting backlash. I remember saying that the BTS boys are Asian and getting people to say, no, they're not Asian, they're Korean, and being so adamant about that they were sending me death threats about that. So I definitely don't think at that point jokes would have been taken as jokes. But of course, it's not just memes and jokes that are circulating recently, as some people are talking about a situation that happened not too long ago during a concert. Now, back then when the BTS were doing more concerts, there were a lot of cute moments that people often liked to snip and surface on social media. Of course, some of these things would be taken out of context and some other things are not taken out of context, but are just strange and there's no explanation for it. And even with context, it could be weird. For example, there was this one situation in which JK and Jimin were on stage and it seemed as if JK was nibbling on Jimin's ear. Now, of course, if this was actually happening and the ear was nibbled on, then that looks very strange. However, in my personal view, I don't see it as that at all. I see JK getting really close because that was a situation in which he wanted to hug Jimin from the back, and it appeared as if he, JK, was in Jimin's ear. But of course, if there was some nibbling going on, I have no explanation for that. I mean, that is a little bit weird, I guess. And I would imagine that even if you see someone as your best friend, you potentially would not do something like that. However, as I said, I don't believe that that's actually what's happening. Some people do like to take moments like this to use it as a way to push forward a narrative, or they'll edit a video, especially now with AI. It's easy to make something look like something happened when it didn't. I mean, you just have to take clips seconds before, or the nibbling would have taken place, and then have an AI fill in the rest, and it could totally be whatever video you want it to be. And of course, I'm not saying that this is what happened in this situation. What likely happened in this situation was that JK got really close, and it appeared like something that it maybe wasn't. Of course, the clip is interesting, and a lot of people have been resurfacing it and talking about it again. I think this is mostly just due to the fact that there is nothing else going on. So there's, of course, a lot more to talk about with this situation, but it is what what it is, and a conversation with him is always going to be good. It's always going to help him. I also doubt something like this would happen in public, as it would be too obvious, right? So if there is this homophobia that exists in Korea, and this is a concert that's happening potentially in Korea, then doing something like this would definitely be seen as not only inappropriate, but seen as potentially repulsive to his Korean audience, right? Because they might not be accepting of that. And before anyone says that I am insulting gay people and stuff, because I've heard that a lot of people think that I'm homophobic or whatever, I'm literally part of the LGBT community, so I have no idea what people are saying. However, I am fully aware of this idea that there are people in other countries that find the LGBT community repulsive. Of course, we have 2 dating rumors in this one video, which is very exciting for anyone who cares, as it's not just with Jimin, but there's also a rumor with JK with a woman that no one saw the face of. So this was during his promotion period, which happened to be resurfacing now, which of course is very interesting. The clip shows JK going to an event, and a woman comes out of the car first, but she comes out in the opposite direction, so she's like was aware of which side the press was going to be, so she came out covering her face and then looked into the other direction, so no one saw her face at all. And then right after she got out, JK came right out, and then he faced the press and the people recording. However, of course, that naturally leads to a conversation of who is this woman, as the community is very aware of the fact that there are like women working with BTS, but they typically avoid being seen with women in general. So much so that oftentimes when these makeup artists would be next to the BTS boys, as cameras would be rolling for the behind the scenes, the makeup artist would cover their face or hide away or whatever, and those clips would make it into the official video, which then makes people even more suspicious of who that woman is, right? Because if they had just stood there and did the makeup, people might not have cared as much. But also, who am I kidding, right? Because even if it's just someone who goes near the BTS boys and it's a woman, I'm sure the entire community would care and already know their name. In my opinion, I think it's interesting because if this was a woman that was dating JK, she likely would not have been in the car with him while he rolled up to the press. So if she was in the car, then she likely would have just stayed in the car and then maybe exited a block away, or she likely would not have cared at all. So she would just have stayed in there until the car brought her back to the hotel or whatever. And if she wanted to go to the event, she likely would have needed to take a different car to get to the event. So these are things that the label would take precaution doing. And if JK is coming out of a big van, we know this is likely the manager driving the car. So the manager definitely would not have allowed any of this to happen if he was dating the person that was in the car. So who is this person that's in the car? Do we have any theories? Well, I do. I honestly believe this was either his stylist or makeup artist. And that of course makes a lot of sense why this person was walking into the venue with him, because this person now has to be there for the pictures. This person has to be there to make sure that JK looks really good on camera, his hair looks really good, and so that could just be the person that we are seeing coming out of the van. And that of course makes a lot more sense. He would need someone like that, as there's going to be a lot of pictures happening in there. The woman was likely probably able to come right out of the van, as she was probably right by the door of the car, because she was making sure that JK looked good before he left the car. So that also explains why she came out so quickly. That's just my theory. I don't know if any of that is correct, but those are just my thoughts. Let me know what you think. Make sure to check out Patreon for more videos, link down below. Thank you, just love the comment right here. Love you, bye.